In the evening, Salah was surprised to see him in a happy mood. It was the opposite, especially after the events of the afternoon. But tonight he took her out. She was extremely nervous, but also extremely excited. After many years, she was sitting in the open-air part of a restaurant and eating barbecue. After eating, he went to the market for window shopping. Salah gave him a chance to take care of himself with great gentleness and attention. He kept talking to her lightly until she finished eating and she was back to normal. Due to Eid shopping, there was a big rush in the market at that time. It came after a long time. The shape of the market had changed. She was amazed to see these new brands and shops which were not there 89 years ago. Whenever Dr. Sabat Ali's daughter or Saeed Ahmed's son went out with their families, they tried to take him along, but he could not go out with them. The decision was his own. She didn't want to cause any more trouble for any of them. He considered marriage only as a change of place of residence. He never thought of a change of circumstances. But miracles do happen. They are rare, but they must happen. And what will you take? And what? He woke up involuntarily at Salah's voice. And what? Yes. Enough. And what? He hesitated. I was talking about shopping. He said. And what? No. I have everything. And what? Imam said with a smile. And what? My father also has that. And what? His face was involuntarily red. And what? Did you like my definition? And what? Salah? And what? Come on. Did I ask you to define it? And what? He is a shapeless genius. And what? You didn't tell the place. You just said that I want to introduce you. And what? He was being guarded while shouting at her. Imam looked at him this time by moving his neck. She was shocked when she saw a bag on the back of a shoecase. For a while, Kuch was looking at this black-colored bag with appreciative eyes. And it was the thing in the showcase, in front of which she stopped with a smile. Salah took one look at the person and then said with great ease, I think this book will look good on you. Come on. He said, opening the glass. And what? No. I have a lot of fancy clothes. And what? Imam stopped him by placing his hand on his arm. And what? But I didn't give anything for your wedding, so I want to give something. And what? He could not speak. She really liked that book. From this boutique, they bought not only Sahih, but also some other jewelry. A few ready-made dresses, a few sweaters, shoes to wear at home from another boutique. And what? I know, you have a lot of clothes, but I will look better if you wear mine. And what? I am doing it all for my own pleasure, not trying to please you. And what? On his first objection, Salah said with extreme eloquence. Imam did not object after that. It was a bit of a shock, but after a while this shock was over. Then he took all things according to his will. And what? Everything looks good on you. And what? So don't ask me. He asked Salah's opinion. He said, smiling. Put curtains on the corner of the lounge. Do you remember Imam? And what? What's wrong with you, blind? And what? He was surprised. And what? No. But I like curtains. And what? It's a good picture. And what? Why not? And what? Salah said with a smile, hiding his heart. He could not tell her that she was from Padu. After having coffee and tiramisu in a cafe at 12 p.m., he returned home at around 12 p.m. Lahore was once again shrouded in fog, but the fog was beginning to clear from the way of life. Even after coming home, she opened the window and sat on the sofa. How many years later she used to look at anything she received not with a burden of gratitude and benevolence, but with a sense of entitlement. One of the many blessings for a woman is her husband's spending money on her, and why was this blessing? She understood it today. Dr. Sabat Ali and his wife used to buy clothes and other things at the beginning of every season. Saeed Ahmad also used to bring food for him. His son and the daughter of actor Sabat Ali also used to send him every now and then, but he did not feel such happiness or peace while taking any of them in his hand. It was not a charity, but it was not a right either. It was charity, and it could not make its existence a habit of charity even in so many years. Undoubtedly, they became a part of his life. What was the feeling of holding these things in your lap? Happiness, freedom, assurance, relax, or something he didn't have the words for. And quote, "What are you looking at?" And quote. Salah left the washroom after changing his clothes and coming into the room after turning off the light of the rising room. He saw Imam sitting on the sofa like this with all the things spread out. They were surprised. Ever since she came, she had been sitting with this cheese. And quote, "I started to put the bus in nothing." And quote. Imam started to wrap these things. And quote. "Once Rob has emptied it, you put your clothes in it." And quote. "If more space is needed, the guest room is also available once in a while. You can use it." And quote. He used to say to her while looking out of his room. And quote. "I have to bring my stuff from Saeed Ahmad's house." And quote. Imam gave all the things. And quote. He said, and quote, "It's raining and pouring in bags." And quote. "What kind of stuff?" And quote. He was still hiding in the drawer. And quote. "My dowry stuff." And quote. Imam said with great enthusiasm. For example, he was shocked seeing some papers taken out of the drawer. And quote. "Their pots, their electronics." And quote. "There is also furniture, but it is in the showroom, and there are also some small things." And quote. He kept these papers in the drawer and kept listening to him. And quote. "Is there anything of your personal use?" And quote. He asked. And quote. "They are all my personal things." And quote. He said blankly. And quote. "It is the property of dowry." And quote. Salah said in a way that he knew. And quote. "Now you will say, you don't want dowry." And quote. She said a little excited. And quote. "I don't want any kind of stuff." And quote. Salah said in 2 words. And quote. "Do you think there is something missing in this apartment already?" And quote. "You want everything is in the number of 2. Where will you keep it?" he asked. Imam fell in thought. And quote. "She has been buying things for herself for years, but most of the stuff comes from Abu's money." And quote. "He will be angry." And quote. She was still not ready. Did the actor dowry his 3 daughters? He was asking. And quote. "No, don't you?" And quote. "How do you know?" And quote. He could not speak for a few moments. "He told us himself," he said. And quote. His 3 daughters are married in the family. Imam said, and quote, trust me, I will not misbehave with you for not taking dowry. And quote, it must have been a gift from the actor, but he gave it to you for your security, because your wedding was taking place in a family that was close to you. I don't know fully, but they know about me and so do you. Salah said to him, and quote, I have dishes, bed sheets and clothes. There are so many small things that I have been collecting for years. Now, how do you do everything? She was unhappy. And quote, okay, what you have taken from yourself, bring it, the rest, see everything. And quote, they will donate to a charity. Salah came up with another solution. This time she started thinking. And quote, in the morning, while going to office, I will go to Saida Arma's side and I will come from the office soon. We will also do your packing. And quote, he came towards him with some papers in his hand. He sat next to Chizo on the sofa. And quote, sign the place marked with a cross. And quote, he held a pen with some papers growing towards him. And quote, what is this? And quote, he looked at these papers with a little surprise. I am opening your account in my bank. And quote, but my account is already open. And quote, come on. Have an account in Mirbank too. And quote, we are not bad, we provide good service. He joked. Imam started signing the papers. And quote, then close the account, will you? And quote, Imam said after signing. And quote, no, let it be. And quote, Salah said taking the papers from him, how much check do you need to open an account? Imam's opinion is that it is a foreign bank. Of course, opening an account will require a little more money than that of a national bank. And quote, your right is to be sealed. I will pay the same amount. And quote, Salah put the papers in an envelope and said to him, write a figure on it. And quote, Imam looked in surprise at the writing pad that he held out to him. And quote, what kind of figure? And quote, war al-jahi. And quote, any figure, whatever you want. And quote, digits. Salah said. And quote, why? And quote, that's more. Salah kept the pen in his hand. He picked up the pen again, but his mind was completely blank. How many digits is the figure? Imam asked for his help. After a few moments, he fell into a deep sleep. Then he said, and quote, if you write a figure of your own free will, how many digits will you write? And quote, 7 digits. And quote, Imam fell in thought. All right, right then. Salah's face had an involuntary smile. Imam looked at the blank paper for a few moments and then he started writing. 3,752,960. He turned to the writing pad. Salah, looking at the paper for a few moments, it came as I could. Then uncontrollably laughing while separating the paper from the pad. And quote, what happened? And quote, he was shocked and confused by his response. And quote, no, what happened? And quote, while folding the paper, he looked at Imam's face with a very deep but strange look while smiling. And quote, why are you looking at me like this? And quote, he was confused by his views. And quote, your husband can see you. And quote, Imam did not feel it. He was changing the subject with great purity. While talking to him, he would imperceptibly write in the envelope on the paper. And quote, "You didn't show me to wear a sari, unquote, unquote, unquote. Would you be wearing a sahi at this time of night?" Unquote. He laughed involuntarily. He stood up from her. It was the first time she had laughed like that, or perhaps the first time he had seen her laugh so closely. Imam, kept inside a bag, felt his eyes on his face. He looked up. He was really looking at her. And quote, "What is it now?" Unquote. Unquote. "I was thinking about one thing." He was serious. And quote, "What?" And quote. Unquote. "You look good not only when you cry, but also when you laugh." Unquote. Unquote. First there was surprise, then sparkle, and then happiness in his eyes. Salah wanted to know every impression. Like someone flashed him. Then he saw her look like a shepherd. Then his face changed color. First his ears. His cheeks and nose are red. And maybe his neck too. He had never seen a woman or man change color so vividly in his life as he did 9 years ago, 2 or 3 times. He looked red in anger. It was strange for him. But this scene was touching. And even though he was upset, he was still blushing in the same way. This scene was more touching than him. And quote, "It can drive any man crazy." And quote, by the look on her face, he admitted, he'd never seen a woman in his life blush so much at such a harmless phrase. And he complained that she hated him. Does not the Salah's heart was desired, he left it again and again. She was obviously looking at it very seriously in the bag, but there was a slight tremor in her hand. She was definitely getting confused by his views. There are some things that once you bring them home, you don't realize where you put them, because you put them somewhere. That place in front of you seems to be very empty. There are few things, which after bringing home, keep them anywhere, that place becomes the most precious and valuable. He did not understand which of these things the Imam had for him. Seeing her face, he turned towards her with a little helplessness and he touched her right cheek with great tenderness. She blushed a little shyly. He kissed her right shoulder with the same tenderness. And then Imam saw her take a deep breath and get up. She was sitting there. Salah did not turn around. He used to keep these papers in the drawer of his bedside table. If you turn around and look, maybe the Imam's views will surprise him. He kissed her shoulder for the first time and there was no love in the touch. And quote, respect and quote. And why, he could not understand. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. He came to Saeed Amami's house at around 10 o'clock the next day. The Imam's smiling, assured face and immediate response. He not only responded to the salam of the Prophet, but also kissed his forehead, while giving love on his head. And quote, all this has to be done. And quote, she brought it to her room, where there were 2 bookshelves and there were about 300 to 400 books in them. A box? Salah asked with a hand gesture. And quote, no, easel, canvas and painting equipment too. Imam pointed to the painting equipment and some unfinished paintings lying along one wall in the room. This is not much. The box itself will come in 2 cartons. Salah guessed looking at these books. And quote, no, these are not just boxes, there are more. Imam said. He took off his dupatta and placed it on the bed, and then sitting on the carpet on his knees, he started pulling a carton from under the bed. And quote, hey, I take it out. Salah stopped him and pulled the carton himself. And quote, remove everything under the bed, and quote, they are all in the box. Imam instructed him. Salah looked under the bed. There were at least 7 or 8 caves of various sizes. He took out one after another, and quote, just. He asked Imam while smiling and pointing his hand. She was not focused on him. She was trying to get down on a stool on top of the wardrobe in the room. Salah removed it once again and brought it down himself. He thought that this is the last batch of books because there was no other place to keep them in the room. It was a misunderstanding. She opened the closet and took out the books from a box inside and placed them on the bed. There were at least 100 books that he took out from the cupboard. He kept looking at them. After the wardrobe, it was the turn of the drawers of the bedside tables. There were also books in them. After the bedside tables, it was the turn of the rising table drawer and cabinet. The clothes basket in the room, which he thought was a laundry basket, was also being used to store books. He stood in the middle of the room, looking at books from different parts of the room. The number of books on the bed was more than the books on the shelf, but she was still moving around the room with a lot of noise. He removed the curtains of the small kitchens that opened into the courtyard. After that, Salah saw him repeatedly opening all the toys and taking out books from them, which were closed in plastic. Shoppers. Perhaps this precaution was taken to protect the book from dirt and moisture. And quote, there are only so many books. He finally informed Salah. Salah asked impatiently, taking a look at the pile of books scattered around the room and the pile of books lying on the bed. And quote, is there any other stuff? And quote, yes. I also bring some canvases and paintings. She left the room without waiting for his answer. Salah picked up a book from the pile of books lying on the bed. It was a novel by a very famous American writer of romance novels. He looked at the title, and a smile came involuntarily on his face. If he mentioned Nawal's name in front of Imam, she would turn red. He opened the novel. Imam had already written his name on a blank page inside the book. The date the book was purchased, the date, the place it was purchased, the date the book was started and the date the book was finished. He was surprised. He considered this type of novel to be a waste. He may never like to see a novel of this writer in someone's hand, but he wrote his name and dates so seriously on this novel, as it is an extremely important book. He turned a few pages of the novel. Rick continued to toss and turn in a world of uncertainty. Various lines were highlighted with colored markers in places within the novel. A star was drawn in front of some lines and a bubble star in front of others. He took a deep breath involuntarily. In these lines, there were wild romances, extremely platonic, sweet talk, meaningful dialogues. They were marked with stars. Salah kept that novel and picked up another novel, then third, then fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. They were the most romantic of all. Romantic novels of the same style, and all of them were similarly high-lit. For the first time in his life he was meeting a romantic and also a serious reader of romances of the Mills and Bones and Barbara Cartland type. And looking at this kind of book, it has also been discovered that they are not books but only these novels were read. In the 2,000 books in the room, only a few paintings, cookery and poetry books were seen. The rest were all English novels. And they are taken. While watching a novel, he was startled by the Imam's voice. She used to make a small batch of some complete and some incomplete paintings during 2 or 3 cycles in the room. Salah was busy in reviewing these books. He put the novel in his hand back on the pile of books that was lying on the bed. Looking at the paintings lying on the carpet, Salah realized that the paintings in the house of Saeed Ahmad are also made by his hand, and surely these paintings see availability of more space due to lack of wall hangings. It didn't happen. And quote, "Son, why did you collect all the pieces of kebab? Will you take them with you?" And quote. When Saeed Ahmad came into the room, he was shocked to see the condition of the room. "These are essential things, Mary." And quote. Imam. In front of Salah, this stuff was decided to be kathkiba. And quote. What is necessary in them, these books, give in the way. And quote. It took so much time and the pictures stayed where they were. It is a small house for you people. Where will it all be fulfilled? Seda Imami was amazed to see this book. Ichina Anu also saw all the books of Imam together for the first time, and it was not a happy sight for him. And quote. No, it will come, all of it. And quote. There are 3 bedrooms, one of which will be used to keep this stuff, but other things will have to be kept here. Blankets, quilts, rugs and cushions, etc. She was ready in a second. But son, all this stuff is for work. Decorate your home with this. What will you do with the book and the pictures? And quote. Saida Ahmad's father also objected. And quote. No problem. Their books are a must. There are still boxes and cartons or shoppers to pack. Salah said the last sentence to the Imam while dying on the sleeve of his suit. Around 3 o'clock, all the stuff was scattered in the guest room at their house. Farkan invited him to his side for iftar that day too, but Salah excused himself. At the moment it was more important to get this stuff done. Around 3 o'clock, all the stuff was scattered in the guest room at their house. Farkan invited him to his side for iftar that day too, but Salah excused himself. At the moment it was more important to get this stuff done. In a store, a few years ago, Salah saw a small cabinet with aluminum and glass racks. It is a coincidence that the wheel that has been planted has not gone in vain. 4 feet high and 3 feet wide, 3 cabinets of the same design covered an entire wall of the guest room and gave it the shape of a study room. But there was no end to Imam's happiness. Almost all his books were included in these 3 volumes. For the first time in so many years, this book has been assigned the place of a song. Her easel and rack were wrapped around a rack built into the laundry room wall. She didn't bring any other things in her dowry except bed and bed sheets. Then she didn't know that she was the only one using these 2 items in her fate. Salah's kitchen area used to look like a residential area. Rex's glass-topped new crockery and countertops completely changed the look of the kitchen. When those people finished at 10 o'clock at night, the new stuff that came in the apartment was wrapped up. Food was brought from Farkan's house for him, but that night, Imam served it with great care in a new crockery. And quote. Looks good, doesn't it? And quote. Imam asked him with shining eyes. Salah looked at the brand new inner plate in front of him and the shiny cutlery around it, and then raised his fork and looked at it carefully and said very seriously. And quote. Yes, it looks like we are the first and only customers on the opening day of a restaurant, but that's the problem, Imam. And quote. This crockery and cutlery is so new that I don't want to eat it. I can't say in Old English. And quote, Imam's hair is gone. At least it wasn't the sentence she wanted to hear from him at this point. But they are very good pictures. Salah immediately corrected his mistake. Guess she was in no mood to appreciate the joke at the moment. There was no change in Imam's impressions. The old man said while taking out the rice in his plate. And quote, they will drink coffee after eating. And quote, this time his face softened. And quote, kitchenware is to be taken. And quote, he said immediately. He stopped putting a spoonful of rice in his mouth. And quote, still any luggage left to pick up. And quote, they were surprised. And quote, I want groceries. And quote, and quote, and quote, what kind of grocery? There is everything in the kitchen. And quote, flour, rice, dal, what is masala? And quote, not at all. Imam asked in response. And quote, what are they supposed to do? And quote, I have never cooked. Salah shrugged his shoulders and said, carelessly, and quote, but you will not cook in me. And quote, we cannot always eat from someone else's house. Imam said seriously, also want jars and containers. Do you remember Imam? And quote, currently, I am not in the mood to purchase this product. I feel tired. Salah cried. And quote, okay, well, I'll buy it tomorrow. And quote, Imam said. That night they went to the nearby market for coffee. While walking around the Guy Fortress, he drank coffee while sitting in the same Guy. And quote, thankfully, the book has been found. And quote, Salah is drinking enough coffee. She grew up watching the shops outside as a child. Those books were still stuck in his consciousness. And quote, they are not books. And quote, Salah said seriously. Taking a sip of coffee, he looked at Salah in surprise. And quote, 95% are novels. That too is cheap romance. I can understand. 5 out of 10. Let's say there can be 100 and 227. But 2,000 novels like this. How much stamina do you have to wear such a rag? And you must have. Read these novels regularly. I think I have the biggest collection of cheap romances in Pakistan right now in my house. And quote, he remained silent. Kafi looked out from the child. Salah waited for some time for any response from him. Then he was worried about his long silence that he had not accepted. Throwing his left arm over her shoulder, she offered a silent apology. And quote, well, it's cheap romance, but it sounds good to me. And quote, she looked out from the child and said for a while. And quote, their people always meet. No one escapes. It's my wonderland. And quote, she looked out of the child as she said and arrived. He was silently watching her face and listening to her. And quote, when nothing is going well in your life, it's nice to go into a world where everything is perfect. And quote, it's a little bit what you want. It's a match what you think. But it's a little bit. But it doesn't matter. It makes my life less miserable. Hey. When I don't work, novels were read more. Sometimes in the morning, all day and all night. When I used to read these novels, I did not remember any of them. Mom, dad, sister, nephew, nephew, nephew. No one. Otherwise it was very difficult to think about anything other than my family all day or night. before I went to sleep. Worry about someone else besides life. Well, I used to have nightmares, and then I built a world of dreams through these novels. A novel opens and a life changes. My family used to be in. I used to be in. Jalal used to be. And quote. Salah couldn't get enough of his lips. How much it pained him to hear the name of this and quote. Person and quote. On his lips at that time. Such pain will happen to a person at the time of death. Yes, if the novels were his and quote. Perfect world and quote. And his wonderland, Jalal Answer would be in it. Salah could not be Iskander. She was religiously and legally bound with him in a relationship, even in the heart. In the relationship of the heart, maybe until now. And that was the past, there was none other than Jalal Answer. Seeing his face, he was saddened, and while speaking to the Imam, he probably did not realize that he had taken Jalal's name and used it in some way. Adequate, or at least once a year a must-see. She was still looking out as a child. There were also and quote. And quote. Still the patience of and quote. Someone and quote. Was being tested. And quote. It was good for me to live in this world. There was hope. There was light. There was waiting, but it was not achieved. There was pain, but it was not eternal. There were tears, but it gave a wipe, and there were only books in which Imam Hashem was not safe. Every time I write my name on these books, I remind myself who I am. As the book tells me who I am upon opening the book again. She used to call me by my old name. By this name, by which no one else called me in so many years. Sometimes there is so much light in the darkness that a person can definitely not see himself but feel his presence. And quote. His voice was beginning to waver. She became silent. The cup in Dunav's hand had become quite cold, and he did not want to drink it now. She was drying her eyes by removing tissue paper from the big tissue box on the bag. Salah took the cup of coffee from his hand without saying anything. After throwing a second cup in a dumpster, he sat down again in the car and asked the Imam while starting the car. And quote. And you want coffee? And quote. And quote. And quote. No and quote. And quote. The way back was set in unusual silence. Asterisk asterisk and quote. I have some work in the office, you go to sleep. And quote. He changed his clothes and left the room. Instead of going to sleep. And quote. I will wait. And quote. Imam said to him. And quote. No. I'll be a little late. And quote. He said, looking at the novel in Imam's hand that she had brought to read at night. He was actually working on the floor of the office, but the study tea. As soon as he sat on the bill, he realized that the last thing he wanted to do today was that. He sat on his laptop table for a while, then took a breath and came into the guest room. As soon as he turned on the light, the bookshelves along the front wall came before his eyes. He had placed the book there a few hours before, with great care and delicacy. According to the author's name, they were grouped on different racks. Until then they were only and quote. Imam's books and quote. For him, but now he wanted to take all these books and burn them in the Arabian Sea. Ha or kum az kum ravi, you could have thrown it. Those books were not discarded. Imam's imaginary perfect life which he used to spend with Jalal. Answer. Those 2,000 romances were not the romances of these characters that were in these novels. It was a romance of only two characters. Imam and Jalal's. To become a high vessel. Open Heart or tolerance is not necessary, but it is more necessary not to work the mind. He was also her husband. He did not want to keep these books at home, and he could do so. She was his wife. Ruti Doti was angry but not so powerful that she could carry the book without his consent. She was a woman. She could resist, she could not. He was a man and he did not need any tactics against him. For his own pleasure. This was his home, this was his world. He does not want to live with the conditions, nor can he. He comes into the world with respect and stays in the world with it. So the easy solution was what the society and his mind was telling him. The difficult solution was what his heart was saying to him and what his heart was saying. And quote, "Look, go dude. This is a poisoned lip, but drink it." And Dil did not say. Even then he could not throw this thing out of his house, which was the property of the Imam, which used to be a salve for his wounds. In the characters of these books, she was thinking of anyone, but the name written on these books was her own, and it was the name that was part of her soul. There are many types of patience and none of them are easy, so he thought and turned off the light and left the room. He never smoked a cigarette during Ramadan. But back in the study room he smoked a cigarette. At that time, this was the only solution he could think of to normalize himself. Sitting down with the intention of smoking a cigarette, he has no idea how many cigarettes he has smoked. And quote, Salah and quote. He was startled by the Imam's voice. Sitting on the rocking chair, a cigarette held in his left hand in an inconspicuous manner, he placed it in the ashtray. She opened the door and must have seen a cigarette in his hand. Even then, the smell of cigarettes in the room tells. And quote, "Do you smoke?" And quote, he grew up in a shocked and worried manner. And quote, "No," and quote, "just sometimes." And quote, when he gets upset, he smokes half a cigarette. And quote, the said old man's eyes were very wide. She was covered in cigarette butts. And quote, drank a lot today. And quote, he growled, then he raised his head and looked at him and said, while trying to keep his tone smooth, and quote, "You are not asleep yet." And quote, "You are upset with me." And quote, he asked her instead of answering the question. So did he feel it? Salah saw his face and thought. There was a strange fear and anxiety in his eyes. She was dressed in a nightie with a woolen shawl wrapped around her. Instead of answering, Salah leaned on the back of the rocking chair and watched. He stopped rocking the chair. His silence added to her anxiety. And quote, "What has your family done?" And quote, "Or what my family has done." And quote, what was she thinking? Salah involuntarily took a deep breath. I wish, and quote, he, and quote, was the reason. And quote, she, and quote, wasn't, she was. What will my family say? Or what will your family do? He asked her, in a soft voice. She remained silent as if she herself did not know the answer to this question. But she was looking at him silently, as if she was sure that he was not telling the truth. He wondered how she sat with such worries in her mind. He sat down on the rocking chair. At that time, he felt pity for the Imam. And quote, "Come on." And quote, he straightened up and held her left hand. She shivered and fell into his arms. Salah took her right hand inside her shawl, wrapping it around her tightly, hugging her to her chest like a small child, and kissed his head. And quote, no one is saying anything. and no one is doing anything. Everyone is busy in their own lives, and if something happens, I will see everything. You should be worried about these things. He took her in his lap. Now he was swinging again on the rocking chair. Then why are you upset? And quote. I have many problems of my own. And quote. He's big. Imam raised his neck and tried to see his face. For the first time in so many days, he took her so seriously. And quote. Salah. And quote. You. And quote. I'm not worried. And if I am, you're not the reason. And quote. Don't ask me this question again. Before he could finish speaking, he answered the question in a somewhat harsh tone. As it was in his mind, he could not speak for a few moments. His tone was very harsh, and Salah also felt it. And quote. What are you saying? I need something for the kitchen. And quote. He changed the subject, this time with great gentleness. The Imam asked him once again, name the and quote. Tomorrow night we will go for groceries. And quote. And quote. The Imam did not refuse this time. With her head on his chest, she looked at the sheets of paper with many notes, guidelines and oddly indexed notes written on soft burlap on the wall. Then she asked Salah. And quote. What do you do in the bank? And quote. And quote. She was startled for a moment, then looked at the sack following his gaze. And quote. I work for nothing. And quote. And quote. He's big. And quote. I never liked bankers. Imam has no idea how many times he has made this comment at the wrong time. And quote. I know, you like actors. Salah's tone was hoarse. And quote. Yes, I like actors. And quote. Imam confirmed this in a simple tone, resting his head on Bora's chest, without even realizing that he was looking at her. That being said, he did not care for Jalal, but for Salah. And quote. You didn't tell me what you do in the bank. And quote. Imam asked again. I am in public relations. And quote. He said this. He himself did not understand. The Imam breathed an involuntary sigh of relief. And quote. It's still better. And quote. Good thing you are not in direct banking. What did you study last year? And quote. And quote. Mass communications. And quote. And quote. He was speaking one word after another. And quote. I like this subject very much. You wanted to make something else. And quote. And quote. You mean an actor? And quote. Salah Salga. But Imam laughed. And quote. You cannot become an actor by studying mass communication. Salah did not answer. If she had seen his face, she would not have commented so casually. And quote. I hate robots. And quote. Salah said coldly. She looked like an incompetent. And quote. Why? He said, looking at Salah's face in surprise. His face was impassive, at least Imam could not see him. And quote. That's right. Salah said with a big cold face. And quote. That's how. There must be a reason. And quote. She was excited. And quote. Why do you dislike bankers? And quote. Salah replied in a Turkish way. And quote. There are bad habits. Imam said very seriously. And quote. Bankers? Salah said in disbelief. And quote. Yes. And quote. She was serious all the time. She stood up, removing Salah's arm from around her. Salah did not try to stop him. She used to go near and see Bora. There were notes and guidelines on it. And quote. Bankers protect people's money, property. And quote. He heard Salah say loudly behind him. And money destroys people's faith. He answered without hesitation. And quote. In spite of this, people come to us. Salah said in the same way. And quote. But they don't trust you. And quote. She was smiling but not smiling. He looked at her face in silence, then nodded in confirmation. And quote. A rogue banker can only take your money, but a rogue actor can take your life, so who is more dangerous? And quote. The Imam could not speak. He tried to find an answer for a few minutes but he did not get an answer. Then he asked an old man. And quote. If I were an actor, would you still hate actors? And quote. She was taking it under emotional pressure. It was wrong, but what else does she do? And quote. I don't draw conclusions on possibilities, I draw on ground facts. When and quote. If and quote. Doesn't exist, I can't even comment on it. He answered clearly by shrugging his shoulders. Imam's color turned pale. The answer was unexpected, at least from Salah's words. And quote. The facts are that you are my wife and you are not a doctor. I am a banker and I hate actors. And quote. The coolness of his tone reached the Imam first, the coolness of the tone or the coolness of the eyes. He could not speak and he could not move. He had never spoken to her like this in a week. And quote. The night is late, we want to sleep. And quote. Looking at the wall clock, he got up from the chair without looking at it. She was looking at the rocking chair against the wall. She couldn't understand the reason for Moa's change. He was not doing anything that would have used such words. She was there trying to remember the conversation between her and him from the beginning. Perhaps my comments did not go down well with those bankers. As she was analyzing. When he came back to the room, the light was on but he was asleep. She sat down on her bed. She was working all day, but despite sleeping well, she lost a bit of sleep. All the worries about Salah, which had been put to rest by spending a week with him, suddenly woke up. He was sleeping by his side. She kept looking at his face. He was a few feet away from her, more or less sound asleep. And quote. Why do men change so quickly? And quote. And why are they so unreliable? He thought. Seeing her face add to her displeasure. Life was not as safe as it had seemed just a few hours ago. And quote. Will you sleep with the light on today? And quote. Salah Kurawa is taking it big. He was definitely not in a deep sleep. Imam raised his hand and turned off the lights, but she did not lie down to sleep. In the darkness, Salah turned to him again. And quote. Why are you not sleeping? And quote. I will go to sleep now. And quote. Salah turned on his bedside table lamp with a big hand. Imam pulled the blanket over himself without saying anything and closed his eyes while lying straight. Salah was looking at her face for a few moments. Then he switched off the lamp again. Imam opened his eyes again. Take and quote. It is time for you to wake up, Imam and quote. He was surprised how he saw her opening her eyes in the dark. He craned his neck and tried to look at Salah, but he could not see. And quote. You know, sir, what is the worst job in the world? And quote. He said, turning to Salah. And quote. What? And quote. Marriage. And quote. he said blankly. After a few moments of silence, he heard Salah say, "And quote, I agree and quote, the Imam had no authority. At least Salah wanted to get away with it." To be continued.